All right. Good evening, Jake. Now that's a beautiful little intro.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work this into our new intro, but I wanted to kind of get a
Now, where
timing.
where is that exactly? Because those are tall pines. That's not a rainforest type thing. That's kind of
This
like
is this is North America, I believe. I had to get the exact
yeah, that,
location.
that looks like Alaska type stuff.
Yeah,
Canada.
Canada, somewhere around there. So how you doing tonight, Michael?
Ah, what is Aaron's line? If I'd be any better, I'd be you.
That's a good line. I have to compliment him every time he says it, but I don't always feel like uh, the perspective of how other people are doing is necessarily as good as you might think it may be. I feel like it's easy to say that, and then it's also something that could be misperceived very
Well,
easily.
what it does is it deviates. You don't have to answer the question. You don't
Sure,
have to go
sure.
into, for example, that whole thing. How you doing? The correct answer is fine. It's not, yeah, well, my back was hurting and my mother in law was bothering me. My wife, people don't want to hear that.
Yeah,
They didn't ask you how you're doing
time when
about
they're
that.
asking, half the time when they're asking,
It,
they don't want that much info. They wanted a short answer so they could move on.
it's just a hello, basically. Hi, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. Great. Bye. And that's the level of interaction. Completely superficial. And as long as we avoid sports, religion, and politics and only talk about the weather, the conversation will flow fine and we're all going to be happy.
Yeah,
Okay.
those regular casualties are required for you to consider yourself a nice person in society. Oh well,
Oh, those,
I said hi to these people, so
I say hi to them, but I really don't like small talk. I was never good at small talk. We had this conversation beforehand. It's like you can do so much better with the time and with the actual interaction. You're talking to another human being. Let's, dig deep. Um, Problem is that most people don't like what they see. And that's the problem because we end up wanting to judge the other person according to the standards that we have for ourselves or we have for whatever. And in reality, it's not about judging the other person. It's about getting to know the other person. It's not about judgment. Oh, you do this. Oh, I don't like you anymore. No. Oh, you do that. Great. What else do you do? Oh, do you do that? You do this other thing. Oh, cool. How interesting.
that's
Can
the
you tell
main
me more?
reason. That's the main reason I can't have a normal conversation with most people. Most people are waiting for you to stop talking so they can insert the thing that they're ready to say, and they're not listening to any. Like there is no back and forth. It's
They're not listening.
my
They already have their answer in their head. And it
well,
doesn't
yeah, it's
matter
my
what you
talking
say.
point and your talking point, and it's not actually a productive conversation. And I think that's way too common these days.
Because it's a competition. Life is a competition. My perspective versus your perspective, and mine's right, and you're fucked up, and I'm going to prove that I'm right. Oh, more than and I could actually be that kind of arrogant asshole. And to be honest with you, I most likely am.
I
Um,
have at times, but I try
but
to.
then again, I get into Mark Fiorentino's web Facebook page, and it's just like, okay, who am I?
No, and
I
see,
mean,
and
all the
see
things
that
I'm talking about, the creation of matter and all that kind of stuff, I thought I was, kind of special because I sort of understood it. And all of a sudden, this guy's writing a book about it going, oh, okay.
when really your mindset should be, oh my gosh, how can this guy's information help me with my information and all of us better understand things? I'm glad there's
Yeah.
more people out there like me doing this kind of hard research where they have that
Yeah. The thing
credibility.
is that he's a physicist.
That's what I'm saying. He
So
has
he's
that
got all,
credibility to his name.
yeah. I'm not a physicist. I studied physics. I like it, but I'm not a physicist, you know.
I think
So
you have a better interpretation of language than some people. I think your knowledge in religion is better than some. I think there's a lot of things that people they like to compare themselves to another that's not in the same field as them and go, "Oh, this field's just so much better." That's not always true.
no, it's
Everything
not the
has
field. It's the foundation of it, because okay, he's a physicist. He didn't study theology and he didn't, read into metaphysics and all that kind of stuff, but he knows his physics. Great, he's got that. Then we got Stephen Greer, who's the guy. He's also posting some of his videos, so I was watching some of Greer's stuff as well. And he's a retired doctor. They've got these positions. They've proven themselves as extremely intelligent and capable individuals, and now they go off on a tangent that they personally enjoy. The problem is that
I liked Greer more when he was working out real hard, and he was that swole scientist doctor that was talking about aliens, but at the same time he was flexing out of his shirt because you just didn't see that. he was the Tony Robinson of alien talks.
Oh yeah, it buff, got jacked up and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I used to be. God, I haven't worked out in 10, 15 years.
Well, you say worked out. Like, what are you thinking of?
Like 3 hours in the gym.
Okay, you're thinking of gym workout. When's the last time you played soccer?
Oh, that was on Monday.
I mean, it's so fun to you. You don't think of it as a workout, but that's a lot of things that other people couldn't even do if they tried.
But see, the thing
move around a field.
I understand that, but what I consider as a workout is where you're actually building. Well, yeah, leg muscles are building up and everything else. I associate it like football. I mean, I trained football hard, fucking training. You're out there running for 5 hours a day, working out 3 hours a day, and studying plays and doing walkthroughs for another 2 hours. So it's a lot of freaking hard work, and it develops your body in ways that no other sport really does, because they integrate so many things. So the thing that's lacking that I haven't been doing since I came to Brazil is actually working out, working out, hitting the weights, because but then again, I never wanted to be huge. I wanted,
for me, it's always been more about functionality. And I think that's more important in the long run, how I can make it through the day. Let me give you an example. Like today, if I was to sit down and talk to my significant other about what I did today, she would also say that I probably didn't exercise today. But I know I got paid to exercise today.
You busted your ass today. You worked a lot.
Today for work, I moved 5 yards of dirt by hand and spread it and prepped an area for grass seed. So 5 yards.
5 yards. Holy crap! That's
probably a little over 4 tons, probably. But basically, just moved it all by hand with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. But I knew I was going to get a workout doing that. But at the same time, for me, I got to tell myself in my mind, you're getting paid to work out right now. Like that's what's happening. Functionality wise, you're getting paid to work out right now. It's 80 degrees out. You're sweating. You can do it. That's about. I think people overthink the idea of, I got to gear up and go to the gym. I think it talks me out of it. I think just thinking about the whole gym process sometimes talks me out of it.
Oh, I know, but I miss the burn from really pushing it on the weights. I mean, I have stretch marks from on my shoulders and some other areas, thighs.
You just got to have them around. If they're around, then you don't got to go to the gym. Just have them around.
Exactly. I don't have them around because my wife says, "What do you want those around for?" She also told me I didn't need tools. That was 20 years ago, and now all of a sudden, wait, why don't we have tools? I was telling you this, but people have a tendency of thinking today is everything. A lot of things that I also do in the exercise and working out is future, because you worked your butt off today doing what you did, but you did it in specific muscle groups and a specific repetition, and that can wear you out if you don't have a balance. For example, shoveling 4 tons of dirt, buddy, if you're doing it with the same mechanism and sequence, you're going to have a bad back and really painful muscles.
It's any lifting you should lift properly and never with your back.
But it's also symmetry. For example, you work this way and then you work this way.
Yeah.
So because you've got to switch out to make sure that both sides are being worked out. That's the thing about working out versus working. Because in working out, you're actually pushing both sides.
Well, and I think sometimes people get in a rhythm of working like a job and think that there's that they don't have to work both sides. Like, you shouldn't work out while you're working. There's no, like, if you're going to spend all day walking, walk at a good pace, get a good rhythm. Like, if you know you have to make it all day doing that, then you gotta think about it. Like, you're not going to burn yourself out and start sprinting and getting it done real fast. It doesn't make sense. I mean, some people might, if they want to get their job done sooner, but usually on a regular job, you don't get out of there sooner just because you sprinted through it. You usually miss more. But I don't know. Everybody's a little different about it. I think there's definitely quite a large approach to the way that people want to tackle work, and they try to make it as effortless as possible with the most result when it comes to pay and what you bring home and how much time you have off, which is a proper balance when you're thinking about it in the long run. But you also got to think of what abuse you're doing to your body and making sure that, especially in the manual labor fields, I mean, it gets rough.
And who's to guarantee that your health is going to be taken care of later on when you're no longer useful, but you're in pain?
You got to look out for yourself. You can't rely on other people to do that for you.
Nobody will look after you. Not a central healthcare system or anything else. No, we'll need help from them, but they are looking out for you. You're a machine. It's like going to a mechanic.
You're a number.
I take my Ford to the mechanic, and he's going to put my Ford through the same rigmarole that he's done with every other Ford, and he's going to treat it generally the same. You know, he can use the same spare part for this Ford, the other Ford, and the other one. And so they're all sequences of the same. Now, my Ford is different because I've driven it in a different way. I've used the clutch different. I've accelerated in a different manner. And so my Ford has a tendency of having different problems from other Fords. And unless you know my Ford, you're going to have to watch for a while and try and figure out. That's why the mechanics always ask you, well, what's up? What's the problem? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? And that sort of thing. To try and guess at it, because it is guesswork. Now, if you work with mechanics and all that kind of stuff, and you know it and you listen to it going, yeah, that's my brake pad. I'm going to have to take it in and you talk to them.
It's wild how people can be so tuned into that. I've heard a guy just play an audio clip for a mechanic that knows what he's doing, and he knew by the sound what was going on. I'm like,
he'll tell you the make and model and the position of the screw.
Yeah, it's wild. You can be really dialed in when it comes to that.
Smells. Oh my God. I you know exactly.
Or taste.
What's going on.
Like smelling or tasting something that's dripping out of the bottom of a car. That's just never, oh, that's your coolant. I'm like, what? He goes, it's sweet. It's your coolant. I'm like, oh, okay.
Those guys are a bit exaggerated, but the smell, yes, because you get over there and you just sniff. Okay. Does it smell like grease? Does it smell like gas? Does it smell like rubber? Does it smell, burnt? Does it smell? Usually if it smells, it's burnt. So either it's burnt rubber or burnt oil or burnt gas or something else. The coolant also has its own little smell as well. So yeah, you can figure things out using your senses. And if you've got enough experience with it, the problem is not all Fords are made the same. And there's not one thing that can fix all the cars. Each car has an individual situation, and it has to be dealt with its individual parts and pieces and maintenance schedules and that sort of thing. But unless it's a total recall to where they got to change out because, during manufacturing, we found out that this wire doesn't hold that well. And so your handbrake is going to snap if you use it too much. So we're doing a recall and we're going to change out that cable. Fine. That's something that all the makes and models that went through that lot, they have that recall and they go through that. But also, if you have a car that's older than that, not necessarily going to have that problem. They're going to have the batch and lot number and everything else, and they're going to do their recall. You can't go, oh, you've got that car, you're going to have to change this piece. Not necessarily. Each car is an individual reality, and whatever. We got insurance, but insurance doesn't cover a lot. The majority of the stuff you got to cover yourself. So Just be wise whenever you're taking your car to the mechanic.
I just
'Cause
heard
maybe the mechanic.
just heard in the news, just broke 2 hours ago, that, let me see here, I'm gonna quote it right, so I'm not giving out any disinformation. Biden's Justice Department says the IRS must hand over Trump's tax returns to Congress. That's interesting.
They really want to do what they make it a law for everyone. Then make everybody in Congress turn them over. First Trump's, then Biden's. Then we'll dig in and find out what's going on.
Most presidents do that openly. In the past, most presidents turn in their income and tax returns. Trump's actually one of the few that hasn't. I bet Biden's is on record, but I think that's why he also separates himself from other family members, because they're not on record. There's other people in Biden's circle that might not be on record, and it's possible. There's always possibilities out there. People have a tendency of playing the system, but until it makes public light, it's all speculation, I guess.
That's why I was reading an article today.
What's that?
I was reading an article today to where there's a little project for $77.2 million for a 1-block stretch of road in San Francisco, which they're only putting it in because there's too much traffic on another one that, is got some highbrow houses on it, and they don't like the traffic, and so they're going to build another street so they can put the traffic over there and not bother the highbrows. They've got a budget of $8 million. I'd have to bring up the article, and they've already gotten like up to $5 million of that. So, yeah, where does all that extra money go?
Actually,
see, the project that she's trying to fund, she's got 5 times the amount, or at least 3 times the amount that the funding requires in that. The actual project itself requires. Well, so then you got to ask yourself,
there's no way they already spent the infrastructure money that they just got. And now they're going to ask for more, but makes you wonder where all the money's going for this infrastructure rebuilding. How much of it's actually.
There was a meme that I saw once. We're trying to figure out how crooked a billionaire that lost a couple billion being president, but he's the crooked one, and we've got lifelong politicians that are millionaires. How does that happen? See, we know how he got his billions. He built shit.
That's the strange thing. He was one of the.
How the fuck did Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and all those little dillweeds get their cash if they were always on the till?
I mean, it was obvious though. He was one of the few presidents that wasn't for profit. He didn't come into the presidency worried about money.
He was the only one who donated his salary.
That's a rare thing though.
He donated. It's not rare. Nobody does that. He donated his salary every freaking year.
I got a bunch of news stories pulled up here. Let me talk about a couple of things that just happened.
Yeah, we can do news today. If, I don't go off the rails.
Just to kind of keep us rolling. And get some good news, some bad news, and everywhere in between. Apparently,
I'm hoping for more good news because evidently they're trying to mandate for everyone, obligatory, just like they did in France.
I don't want to talk about any of that. It's starting to trickle into my area as well. Some people, it's interesting to know that sheriffs in local municipalities as well as state rights can supersede federal in that sense, because I think those individual rights are really important, because I think if you are in a community that at least all feel simultaneously about something, I feel like they should be able to act about that. I don't think they should have to listen to whoever is giving them orders just because they're giving them orders. I mean, I don't know. It's something that has to unfold as it will before we even know more about it, because I think the public knowledge of most of this stuff isn't really public. I mean, no matter what's going on,
they don't have time. They're too damn busy working. to actually pay attention to anything going around, and they'll just do what the big man tells them to do because they got no time to actually pay attention to it. Unfortunately, I do. And yeah, individual will is intrinsic in Western civilization, Western society, because in Eastern societies.
Well, here's another good example talking about what we're talking about. 7 hours ago, DeSantis signs executive order making masks optional in schools.
Who did?
DeSantis.
Oh, Florida. Yeah.
Tampa Bay. That was from Fox 13 Tampa Bay. But
so there are some places that are still fighting for freedom. But see, this is something. This is a culture shock between East and West, because in fact, down here, the individual. For example, when I was reading the Art of War by Sun Tzu, the version that I was reading actually had a 95-page introduction that was explaining the situation of the grandson that wrote it, after, whatever, and was talking about the realities of China, the amount of death in the battles at that time. I mean, each one of those battles that happened in numerous times in China's history, many of those battles killed more people than the American Civil War. I mean, they were bloodbaths. And Sun Tzu, well, his adversary cut his legs off at the knees, because a half a human is going to be worthless when you can have so many other full humans. And he ended up being special because of his mind, not his body or his legs. So
interesting. I just found another one from Politico. Pentagon won't require vaccines for troop deployment, but other details are still unclear. So they're still doing research on it. But,
you can't endanger your entire fighting force. That's crazy.
Interesting. They can't send you overseas vaccinated, like actually deploy you, because that's what it seems like they're talking about, is actual deployment, leaving the States. I don't know. It's interesting that they wouldn't let a vaccinated person leave the States, or they wouldn't encourage you to be vaccinated before leaving the States. I think it is.
No, what they want to do is, if the troops are on deployment, it's because they are a potential fighting force, and any kind of medication is going to have repercussions they have to deal with in that sort of thing. So in order to avoid the natural things that happen in the process, they deploy, they go out, they'll do things if they need to. And that's usually the way they react. The fighting force is different from the ones that are stationed, on the in the barracks or whatever. They're there. They're not going anywhere. So yeah, those would be also federal employees and fall under those things. However, the ones that are in deployment, the ones that are going out, they got to go out fresh, usually. So that's a good sign. At least somebody's thinking. But yeah, we're in a bizarre place. And
let me read this. I'm going to read a little bit of this article. The Pentagon will not require troops heading out on deployment to get vaccinated against COVID-19, but those who are unvaccinated will still need to wear masks, undergo regular testing, and face to be determined travel restrictions. A defense officer told Politico Friday, "We are already deploying with unvaccinated personnel, and that will continue," said the official, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity. He didn't want to give out his name that he was talking about it.
He can't. He'd be court-martialed. You can't talk to them.
But yeah, it's interesting that they're not requiring that of the troops. And I'm assuming that they're going to have to follow the travel restrictions of the places.
Well, see, the whole thing is they're all masked up, and we've got, again, I mean, I've been talking about this for over a year, but the level of filtration on a micron level, it's not filtering out squat of what they say. I mean, no, it's useless. It's,
I mean, and
again,
everybody,
it's virtue signaling at its highest.
I can show you 1 in 4 people that are wearing a mask properly or have a mask that's capable of doing what they think it needs to do. I see people with masks all the time. Either it's hanging and their nose is out, or it's not, flush against their face like it's actually supposed to be. They got air coming in and out of the sides. Like, people don't, I don't know. Just because you have it around your face doesn't mean you're changing the world.
But regardless of the air coming in and around, the size of the holes of what's actually covering is also too big for this. So it's absolutely useless. It's pure virtue signaling.
There's studies about
Fauci himself said so in the beginning of 2020. He said it's ridiculous. Oh, I only said that because we didn't want any N95s masks lacking for the medical personnel. So he was the one talking about, no, you get schmutz and it's got the problems and you touch the face.
Even the CDC's guidelines when it came to washing the masks, how many people have a mask that just either sits in their car or sits in their pocket, and how often are they actually washing it or just throwing it on when they need to wear it?
That's what I do. I just toss it in the seat of my car. I didn't wash mine for 6 months.
I bet a lot of people do that.
I only use it for 10 minutes whenever I leave the house, and in my car, I'd be freaking insane if I'm going to wear it in the car.
It's already.
So I just wear it when I go into the store, get my stuff, and I come out, and then I take it off, and it sits there.
Because I think by CDC guidelines, you're actually supposed to wash it in an industrial washer at high temperature, and most people don't do that. So I mean,
now, why would they need to do that? Because those are the conditions necessary to actually kill any bacteria that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Because these masks were proven in 1918. Fauci actually did a study on this stuff back in 2007. Okay, proving that in 1918 there was a huge outbreak of pneumonia because of the increased use of the masks. The masks themselves were problematic.
That's strange.
100 years ago.
So when I got diagnosed with the possibility of pneumonia, they actually told me, because of how cold it was, that because I'm in the Chicagoland area, to wear a mask.
Well, because one of the problems with your pneumonia was cold based. And so the mask actually allows you to not be breathing in the cold air that's outside, because you're actually, you're heating up the environment. It's a different situation.
What about the people that do like the bag breathing and stuff like that? Like when they're overwhelmed, you ever heard somebody grab a bag?
Oh yeah, hyperventilating.
Yeah. How does recycling the same oxygen help?
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Because they're not breathing in air it's just, if you're just trying to calm down the lungs. Okay. And so, they don't get that. So they actually have to take a deeper breath, because the hyperventilating into the bag, it's only getting the carbon dioxide that's yours. And so the lungs say, wait, I can't hyperventilate. I need to take a deeper breath. When you start to take a deeper breath, if you can take a deeper breath, that relaxes you automatically. Okay, so there are things and things, and that's one of the things I've always tried to find an explanation for everything, because I didn't buy anybody's bullshit. So I always tried to go after the answer myself, prove what was going on. I mean, that's science. I mean, I love physics. I studied physics. And that's the whole thing. You have a hypothesis, another guy has a hypothesis, and so you create different experiments that will test the hypotheses and find out which one's wrong. If they're both wrong, they learn something and they change their hypotheses to go along with what the real world is telling them. Because in the end, science is meant to explain the real world. We can't change the real world to say, well, science says this. Science is an explanation for what we see. It is not what we see. Okay. Science is constantly changing, and because we don't know everything. I mean, Einstein thought that the universe was fixed. It wasn't expanding or contracting. It was just there. That was Einstein's thing. Okay, Mr. E equals MC squared. Love the guy. One of my favorite quotes of his that I put on a hat on a shirt my wife wears. I want to know the mind of God. Period. That's why he studied down deep inside. And actually, to be honest with you, that's kind of like why I do it too. Because he made all this. How did he make it? Now, the why, he's already told us. But anyway, the science looks at things and tries to explain them. If we find more efficient ways of explaining what's going on, usually there's this saying that says the easiest solution is usually the right one. I mean, if you for example, the solar system, if you have to make this entire mechanism to make all the things do what you see them doing in the sky, that's really complicated. You did it really well, and it explains it really well, but holy crap, you got so many mechanisms in there. But all of a sudden, if you just make things spin around and you understand gravity a little bit better, and it's not centered on the earth, but centered on the sun, well, then everything seems to flow a lot more easily. You need less of an explanation to explain why everything is doing. You don't have all these tons of little pieces that are each one doing their, which you do as well, because on a quantum level, that takes you on a whole nother level. And starting to look at Fiorino's stuff, and it's like, yeah.
What'd you think of some of his work?
Oh, I love it. I want to talk to the guy. I'm still trying to finish the video that you made with him. Because that's all good stuff. But he's right in my ballpark. I mean, that's exactly what I've been. He seems to be much more advanced in all that than what, obviously, he's a physicist, than what my work was. And so, I still got work to do. However, I'm not a psychologist, but I've studied a lot of psychology, and I've listened to a lot of psychologists, and I've read about many psychologists. So even though I don't have the coursework, I have the brain work on it. Okay, and I'm not a psychologist, and I can't say that, but freaking A, I know enough. Anyway, same thing. Physics. I'm not a physicist, but 3 years of my life was pure book work on physics. And afterwards, I'm always reading on, what the latest developments are and everything else. And I can follow along because I understood it from the beginning. So do I have a master's in physics? No. But do I know physics? I think so. I've studied it. I've delved into it. See, this is the whole thing about the modern age and the age when we consider it an intellectual age. Leonardo da Vinci didn't have a single degree, and yet this guy is quoted and studied and analyzed by doctors, architects, moralists, philosophers, artists, absolutely. This one guy made so many different inventions because he was always studying. He didn't have a degree or anything else that told him, this guy knows his stuff. He just did it, and he knew his stuff because he knew his stuff. He didn't need anybody else to prove it. He proved it by the things that he did. Nowadays, granted, back then we were less than 1 billion people. Now we got 7.5 billion people on the planet. We got a lot of freaking people. And maybe when you got a lot of people, things happen. I mean, you look at biodiversity in the Amazon. Yeah, there are all kinds of things that happen in the Amazon because you got lots of different life going on over there. We got 7.5 billion people. Maybe that's the reason for a lot of the problems that we have, but still.
I think it's our overpopulation, and then the fact that we like to live in dense populations.
But therein is the thing. If we can, for example, the reason that I've got the forest is because there was a study that said that that it was recommended that people have 2 square meters of greenery to absorb the carbon dioxide and give off the oxygen for each individual. I figured I wanted to have 4 individuals, so I had to have 8 square meters of green.
We pulled this up when we were talking about it before. If you have 2 full-size trees, you're producing enough for 4 humans when it comes to oxygen production. So you're probably well surpassed.
I'll show you. I need to show you my video, and you tell me how much oxygen I'm producing here, because all these are mine.
I think it's harder to tell with smaller vegetative plants, because I feel like some of them can put off a lot more than people would think.
Oh yeah, smaller vegetative plants.
Yeah, like
when they're building. One of the reasons that I can't do my videos during the day is because there's construction over here. Because I ended up selling my 4th lot, and they now built something there. So the dirt that I'd put in was sort of a mound, and they had to cut through and make sure that the property line was set. They didn't just build on the mound. And the forest is mine. They always cleaned and didn't let trees grow or anything else. So when they cut it, they cut it too damn close to my trees. My trees are freaking huge. I almost wept. 2 of my trees on like a week after one after the other. And they were normal. They're not the only ones of that size, but they were around 35 feet tall each. I saw them grow. You know, it hurts when they fell, and they don't give a shit. They chopped it up into little firewood and just tossed it into the garbage. Didn't mean anything, just part of their construction process. Shit happens, you know? Yeah, that hurts. But in the meantime, I've still got...
The outside's going to look at those trees and say, oh, those aren't making me any money. I need to get those out of my way so I can make money over here.
Exactly. That's their mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. My dad would tell me that I'm crazy. They're absolutely right. And that's the way we got to look at things, because you got to make your money. And I'm the kind of guy that's like, money is everything. But the older I get, the more I realize, it's
there's a balance.
It's a system we live in.
There's a certain amount that's essential to keep you moving. And then I feel like when you get to a comfortable place where you can actually find yourself financially comfortable enough to make some more decisions, that'll get you into the next level of making more decisions. But anybody that's...
don't go there. They stay in the money-making part, because they think that, the one who dies with the most wins. Maybe, or maybe they just want to live as well as they possibly can, and that's fine, and that's great. But I visited a doctor's house one time. Beautiful house, huge pool. He had a nice little garden, not like mine, but he had what was available there in Texas, and it was a nice place. And you could tell that he laid out some serious freaking cash. And you see his big screen TV that was there in the double roof living room, because it was really tall ceilings and all that kind of stuff. So you'd see the guy had taste, and he actually unloaded some cash. So we had I was along with a friend of mine who was having a meeting with him, and at noon, and he came in and they did it. And just after they were finished, I asked him, nice place. How long do you spend actually here enjoying this place? Oh, I'm a doctor. No, I don't. Maybe when I sleep, maybe 5-6 hours a day. The majority of times I'm not even here. Okay, just curious. So he's got all that so he can sleep, because the majority of his day is at the hospital.
Well, I mean, it depends. I wonder if he's thinking about the long-term scale. Maybe he's saying, okay, after I'm 50, I'm never going to work again, and I'm gonna I'm going to be traveling with all this money that I worked my ass off for.
Well, like Greer, that's fantastic, and that's recommendable, and that's what my aunt, my mother's sister, did. She worked her butt off, and she put into pensions and everything else. And her hubby, as soon as they retired, they were going to travel the world and enjoy the fruits of their labor. They had a nice house, they had a nice car. Both of them worked for the government, and they were doing good.
I think it's that.
Well, he was about 10 years older than she was. And when she was about to retire, she was diagnosed with cancer and she died before her 65th birthday. And he died of Alzheimer's a couple of months later and didn't even know that she had gone. They're both gone. And that money was split among nieces that didn't think it was enough, and sisters that some used it, some invested, some spent it. And that's one of the reasons why I have my house, because my dad decided that no, we gotta, now is when we gotta live. And at that point, life was good. This is late 90s.
Just like what your dad was saying, where you got to live in the now. I think there's that balance. You got to think a little bit about your future, and then you got to enjoy yourself through the ride.
Absolutely. Now the problem is that my dad now he has properties that he's renting out, but with the COVID thing, they're using all that excuse to not pay their rental. Yeah. And so now he's stuck because he was depending on the land, the buildings that he built to, that was his retirement. Didn't have a pension plan or anything else, never worked for the man, doesn't depend on the government. He's got his own stuff. But now all of a sudden he's got to be asking for favors and everything from friends and family because, because of COVID, we don't have to pay rent. Seriously, somebody's got to, live. Good thing is that he doesn't owe anybody for that. So he's not losing it to the bank because he couldn't pay his mortgage. It's his, it's his retirement, but he's not getting any income from that. And my half brother, he's suffering through trying to figure out, why is that we have these things, but we can't actually enjoy the fruits of that labor. Okay, so life tosses you all kinds of screwballs, and it's not always the way we plan it out. It's almost never the way we want to plan it out. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's worse. It depends on what influences we're listening to whenever we're making those decisions. Now, my folks aren't together anymore, and the difference between them is, in Portuguese, gritante. It's stark. Why? Because my mom was always about, saving and having that steady monthly job that will do it. You drone on and whatever, but you're getting it done month in, month out. Dad was like, yeah, always aim high and you do everything you can to get those, be in the upper echelon. And that means that you've got a good month and you might have 3 or 4 months where nothing really happens, but maybe in the 4th or 5th month, you'll hit gold again, and you keep doing with that. And life can actually be very good, but it's stressful, unsteady, and it requires a different mentality. Both those people were trying to, coexist, which is difficult. The problem is that they both coexist right freaking here. So yeah, that's I get pulled in both directions. But people have to, Shakespeare even wrote about it, stop and smell the roses. We have to enjoy today. We can't work for.
What are you living for if you're not enjoying your life? There's a balance. Like you got to be healthy with it. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. You're gonna find all of these fruits of your labors that you never get to enjoy. Or,
somebody else enjoys them more than you usually.
Or most of the time, they don't even enjoy them, like you were pointing out. They don't even notice that it was somebody else's fruits. Like to somebody else, this actually meant something. It was put in your lap, and now you're looking past it.
And also, there's like, for example, you'll spend 8 hours remaking somebody's garden in the way that they drew it out, and you make it happen, and you put in the deck, and you make their dream a reality. That's a lot of effort and things to where you focused on that. And then they don't actually enjoy it. Yeah, you got your money, you got paid, and you're on to something else. But they made those things and they had an intention, but do they actually sit there and enjoy it? Well, I guess they do, because I'm assuming that the people work 12 hours a day and 16 hours a day and don't actually get back. Yeah. Most people, it's 8 hours, 10 hours max, and they're back home. Yeah. So, yeah, I do that. I generalize, and that's not a good thing either. Yeah, but still, my brother-in-law had a pool, and it was a nice little pool. They never used it. They used it a couple of times over the 15 years when the kid was growing up, a couple of times. But I know that we had one of those inflatable high pools as well. And even there in Texas, I had a friend of mine. She had a pool in her yard. And I would go there as a teenager and just go in the backyard and enjoy the pool. It was great. But after I got older and everything else, her husband actually, at one point, it was green because they weren't using it. They weren't enjoying it. They weren't even taking care of it. They actually forgot it. They were too busy doing the things that they had to do. And it was left to be what it was. And it ended up being green. Why? Because whatever. So now they have a house that doesn't have a pool. They learned they don't need one. They don't enjoy it. That's the evolution. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of that pool. That was a beautiful pool, But yeah, I'm usually too much about actually enjoying where we're at versus, hunkering down, suffering, and gritting it out. I got no problems against hard work. I mean, freak. I was chopping ice for the cows, in the middle of the winter. I'd go out, everybody else is under the covers and it's cold. Don't go out there. Hell no. I got to break the ice because the cows got some drink. I was 7 years old, tossing hay bales off the back of the pickup truck, and breaking them over my knee. I got no problems with that. My dad was building houses. He was an architect and a builder back in the 80s. And yeah, I'd go along with him and build the houses and see the whole damn thing going up. And I got no problems sweeping things out. Because that was life last millennium. Now, this millennium, it's a little bit different. I mean,
a little softer.
If I don't have my cell phone near me for like 30 minutes, I go nuts because I'm lacking information. Whereas last millennium, I'd be running around the creek for 5 hours with a stick, recreating Rambo in my brain. That's the good thing about having a pasture, cows, and a farm and that sort of thing. You get to lose some time in the middle of the creek. Yeah, we
need to take ourselves away from these connections. That's why I try to, as much as possible. The only time I use the internet is when I'm actually at my house on this computer. But when I'm at work, I have a little flip phone so that I can't get too nuts. I can't sit on it, strain my eyes on it all day, worry about what's going on. It's good for texting and calling. And I mean, I can run apps and stuff on it, but why? I mean, I think my phone bill's $25 a month for me and my daughter. I'm like, all right, this is just perfect. If I can keep it at this level where it's not an expense and it's actually making money for me, that's how I got to think about it. I can't be spending. I watch people pay $125 for these nice phones every month that have all the internet and they can watch the TV on there and they can watch. I'm like, you cut out a cable bill to put a cable bill on your phone? Like, I don't understand. It's wild.
Well, my idea is you have to have access to the internet. Now, using my cell phone for the internet, no, only when I'm actually driving. I need it for the GPS or something else. Do I use the data for my cell phone? Otherwise, I've got a VoIP signal at home. So we've got internet throughout the house, and it's not limited by data. They give you the bandwidth and you use it. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries. That happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you said that you're going to be throwing darts and shooting pool later on tonight.
Getting ready to go out here shortly. Haven't gone out in a while, so go have some fun.
Good
and
conversation.
Yeah, meet up with some friends and yeah, I'm not much for hanging out in bars. I'm not much for big crowds and stuff like that. So it's always an interesting experience. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes I run into people I want to see. Sometimes I don't. We always end up going to this local bar where your whole high school will be there some days, and then other days it's your whole wrestling team that you were on the team with, and then it's all these guys that used to pick on you in high school. And like it's a small town. It's a small community when it comes to how everybody knows each other, but it's a big town. And so there's a lot of people that know each other. Everybody knows each other, or they're related, or yeah. it's a goofy area, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's not. There are regions around here that are just like that. I've coached football in some of these places where it's just like that, and it time immemorial. People will just know each other from the area. In fact, this town itself, we got 800,000 people in this municipality, but in the districts, which would be like the burbs and stuff, yeah, the people that are in north of town have a tendency of knowing each other because they work in the same places and they go to the same places, and the people in the south know each other, and the people over on the eastern side, they're closer to the ocean, the swamp and that sort of stuff, and then the people on the west side, well, they're on the other side of the highway, and that's newer stuff and it's cheaper stuff, and they really don't mix with the city as much because it's a little bit further away, and they all become these little communities that amongst themselves everybody knows each other. You know, it's really bizarre. The communities and the idea that they ended up working together because they've known each other for years, you know, and that's something that I never knew. Because
sometimes it's good, and then sometimes I can see it be harmful too, because then they don't want any outsiders, or it can be a little bit of both. But I think there's it's really healthy to have a community that you can always think of going back to, and you'll be either accepted or whatever, but they know you, they know who you are. And I mean, that was something my dad would always describe to me when he was younger and growing up in these smaller towns is, you know, the police were different back then. If you actually got pulled over for drinking, they would follow you home. They didn't throw you in the slammer and take your license away.
Just don't be out, young man, and we're going to talk to your dad, and your dad's going to give you a licking.
Yeah, and you'd end up getting it worse from your own family than you would from the actual police officer.
Oh, yeah. But, you know you ain't supposed to do that, you stupid little shit.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I heard stories about that, of just how much more laid back it was.
Oh man, don't tell my mom. No, please don't tell my mom. Whatever you do, don't tell my mom.
But there was a trust built between the community and the police officers protecting it. They didn't.
Police were there to protect the community. They weren't there to protect the bigger interests.
Actually there protecting and serving rather than trying to catch you on a crime and make money, or, you know, merit.
The city's got to make money, and how do they make money? Fines, man, fines.
Yeah, if the state's not making money, you're not a good officer. I mean, therein
lies the problem. I mean, didn't we have the show The Dukes of Hazzard was based on that? You know, that abuse.
I think they canceled The Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, just because of a flag. I mean, come on.
Too many rebel flags going on.
No, it wasn't because they were, you know, hustling moonshine and driving dangerously.
Well, and that's the funny thing is moonshine is considered one of those things that is like grandfathered in as like a tradition, regardless of like you could never see marijuana in that sense. You could never see a lot of other things, but for some reason, alcohol in the South was like grandfathered in the mountains. But
well, it's like down here with the Italians. They got wine. I mean, there are wineries here in the south of Brazil. They're absolutely fantastic, and they're 3 generations old.
oh yeah,
It's 120-year family vineyard and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's grandfathered in because that's what makes money for them. That's a family business.
Wine's always had that. I mean, going back to the Egyptian times, wine and beer. Look, somebody taught me this in my sociology class in high school, and I thought it was really interesting. It was his. I don't know if it was his premise or if it was what they were telling him to teach us or what, but he based what he had learned off of alcohol and wine to establish the fact that we established some of the first human languages and stuff like that based on drinking and communicating with each other over a drink, and or whether it was a meal and a drink or something like that. It usually was beer or wine that helped establish these first religions and communities sitting down with each other.
He couldn't drink water. Water made him sick. They didn't have access to clean drinking water.
Not in the way we think of it. Running
No,
water,
not like that clean stuff in Flint. I mean, that's way better.
Isn't it flammable?
I remember when the river in Cleveland caught fire.
Yeah.
The river caught fire. I mean, come on. There's nothing in that water. But see, yeah, they did that. And I don't remember if ale was before wine or wine came before ale, but they were both more or less the same time frame.
Yeah, they had the ale back then. They had the mead back then when they were just fermenting fruit, and it was close to beer, but it wasn't really wine either. Mead was also an interesting one they used. That was more Vikings and wine time.
Yeah, but I've heard of mead, but I always thought it was like ale. So explain the difference to me.
I wanna make sure I get the proper definition.
All right.
Here. What is
the internet has its benefits.
Yeah. Well, just because I don't want to what's it called?
I usually go off memory.
But I know it's it's very similar to those. Mead is an alcoholic beverage created by fermenting honey and water, sometimes with various fruits, spices, grains, or hops. The alcohol
honey and water. Now that sounds good.
The alcohol contains ranges from 3.5 to 18%. The defining characteristics of mead is that the majority of the beverage's fermentable sugar is derived from honey, so it's more of a natural process.
Well, they're all kind of natural process, to be honest with you, because it's the breakdown of the sugar
ones that we got that are like kind of grandfathered in. It was because they were an easy process, they were a natural process. We're getting into more advanced ways of doing it now, and we have developed other ways of distilling alcohol. I always thought it was interesting. I think it was Jack Daniels and how they have the number 7 on there. I didn't realize so depending on which number you get, they were talking about batches. One of the ones before that, I don't remember if it was 6 or 5, but one of them is considered poisonous, like it would kill you. And 7 was the refined version that actually worked. And like they talk about the same thing with moonshining. You don't drink the first part. People
got blind from moonshine. That's why you couldn't do it.
Oh,
you don't do it right.
You go blind. The wrong stuff. There's a chemical release process that's going on, and you don't want to take it all in. Even when you're making meat or anything else, you have to release these gases that are coming out. Same. I don't know if it's the same for wine. I don't know as much about wine. In their fermenting process, they usually have the special corks where it releases air sometimes at the same time.
No, the wine can't have air at all interacting with it. The cork is actually there to make sure it's a good seal.
No, is that? No. That you're talking about after it's bottled. I'm talking about
during the process as well. They've got I've gone down to
containing. Otherwise, it turns into vinegar, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So too much oxygen and that sort of thing, it turns into vinegar. So you don't want that.
But how is the alcohol created that's in the wine itself? That's what I'm asking.
There are wineries down here that every time that family visits me, we go down because they're beautiful mountainsides and it's an Italian community and everything else. And you've got like 9 different wineries with excellent wine that's right there in that region. And so, you go on a wine tasting tour, and while you're on the wine tasting tour, they also give you a tour of the installations and they explain the processes and they talk about this fermenting process and the time that it goes into that vat, and they separate it out, and some of the lower stuff they don't use for the wine, but they end up using for something else that got another name, and that sort of thing. And yeah, it'll sit there fermenting, cooking basically, and fermenting. The sugar is broken down because that's what the alcohol is. There's bacteria in there that consume the sugar,
well, and that's where it's similar to mead. Is they just they're using red or black grapes for the sugar content rather than honey or whatever else.
Yeah, which is why I was talking mead, because honey actually has incredibly good healing effects. Propolis, which is kind of like the cream of the honey and stuff. It's excellent for your immune system. Problem is that people can also get botulism from honey if it's stored. See, I gotta study that again, because people associated botulism with honey, and I don't know. Honey itself doesn't actually have a due date. You can store it.
If it's raw honey. Yeah, if it's raw honey, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Can expire.
Yeah, because it's processed. They add sugar to it and other things as well to make it taste better. And that's the whole thing. Whenever humans end up getting in the middle of the process, we gum up the process. For example, there's videos of drunk monkeys. Why? Because they're out there eating the fruit, but on a hot day, if they get fruit that's a bit too ripe, some of it has, it's a very low alcohol content, maybe like 2%, 2% or some shit like that. But if they eat enough fruit, they can't jump from limb to limb because they end up crashing because they're drunk from all the alcohol that was in the fruit, fermenting naturally in the fruit. So it is a natural process. We've just learned to industrialize it and make 150 proof. We exaggerate, and in that exaggeration lies the problem. We want bigger, better, and that doesn't necessarily mean better.
One I have around me is 151, but I think they go higher than that too.
Yeah, well, I remember one New Year's with Everclear. I'm not sure if my friends remember that night, but
yeah.
I
was watching a documentary recently about this tribe. I don't remember exactly where they were, but they go and get this hallucinogenic honey that these bees make, and they actually trip off of it. And you can find it on YouTube, and it like this whole community is reliant on it, and they climb the side of these mountains with these like beekeeper uniforms on that they kind of made themselves, and you can tell they're just an indigenous tribe to the area, and they've done this their whole life. They have these little kids with backpacks just go up there and just grab all this honey and bring it back to town, and everybody's eating some on the way and kind of like, ooh, this is fun. You can tell. And then the guy that is doing the documentary, he tries it, and he's like, yeah, I do got a little buzz going on. Like, there's something happening.
It's quite bizarre. I had never heard about that. It depends. See, the honey also depends on what is in the area, because it's the pollen that they're processing. Yeah. Sometimes you'll have honey that tastes like sunflowers, and sometimes you'll have honey that tastes like some of the other flowers or vegetables or whatever that's in the area that the bees are actually using to make the honey. So evidently in this particular region, there might be some bees making honey out of magic mushrooms. Who knows? Always a possibility. What?
I just looked it up. It's happening in Nepal.
Oh, Okay.
That's where they're the Napoli's honey that makes people hallucinate.
And there's all kinds of fucking funky things in Nepal. All kinds of spiritual things happen over there. So we don't know.
The honey contains grain toxin. Grain toxins are a group of closely related neurotoxins named after some plant native to Japan, originally named for 19th century American botanist. But yeah, some
magic mushrooms is something completely different then. Okay.
Yeah, it's not connected to mushrooms. They make you hallucinate off of a different neurotoxin that they collect from, I'm assuming, a plant locally.
Holy cow. Well, that reminds me of Batman, that little blue flower that he had to look for.
Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen that in a while. Definitely haven't seen Batman in a while. I always make me think of like Ivy and stuff too, when she's got all her stuff going on with her plant that poison.
Oh, I wasn't talking about those. I was talking about the not the Hollywood Batman. I was talking about the other one to where he goes to Nepal to train, and remember that? And he ended up abandoning everything and going and just fighting, and ended up getting tossed in jail in Tibet and all that kind of stuff, just to prove himself. And then he end up taken to Nepal, and the house master, whatever, tells him to find a blue flower, and he brings it back, and they crush it and do all that kind of stuff. I think it was a Dark Knight.
I don't know that one. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, Batman: The Dark Knight, because there's a lot of Hollywood Batmans, with Val Kilmer and all those, whatever.
Yeah, Val Kilmer's my Batman.
There's
I don't like Bruce Willis's Batman, and I don't like. Well, I guess who's the other guy? The guy who plays Jack Frost. I think he did a good. Michael Keaton. He did a good Batman too.
Michael Keaton was the first one of the Hollywood Batmans, and I think he did a decent job. He actually had two that he did of that one.
But yeah, I liked the Batmans that were produced by what's his name? That kind of dark director. He did Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff too. I can't think of his name, but he's the director I liked that did Batman. I think it's gone downhill since then.
A lot of things have gone downhill since those good times, because in reality, we've gotten so superficial away from any essential reality. Back in the day, we had no choice. We were immersed in it. Now we're all in our own little bubbles, and we can talk to the people worldwide that agree with us and exclude everyone else that's nearby because, whatever, you don't need to. But we lose that contact with the essence of what it is to be. So I'm not sure. I'm still debating all that stuff in my own mind. Funky stuff. Hey, Mud Rabbit. No, tonight was my call.
Yeah, it was kind of random. We just popped in to say hi to everybody, and actually, me and Miguel actually wanted to sit, and me and Michael wanted to sit and talk a little bit too. So it's kind of just.
I wanted to be able to get in and talk with the chat a bit, because you guys usually cheer me up. There were no notifications because I called up Jake and I said, "What you doing? We gonna go on? Can we go on tonight?" Because I needed to pick me up, and you guys always pick me up. So thank you, Mud Rabbit. Yeah. We need to player number one. Have you watched that movie?
Yeah.
So everybody's in the
Ready Player One.
Yeah.
One? Yeah.
Yeah. To where he's dealing in this virtual reality world, and as he goes outside of his apartment, let's say it's not even an apartment, they're trailers. It's like a vertical trailer park is what they did.
No, thank you, Mud Rabbit. We really do like having you around and asking good questions all the time. We don't want you to think any otherwise.
Oh no, you picked me up. You're one of the reasons I wanted to come on tonight, Mud Rabbit. Talking to you and Jake is always a pick me up for me, and I was needing that today. So yeah, um, thank you for everything. Anyway, uh, Ready Player number one, he was living in a trailer, and he would have to go downstairs to where they were just stacks of trailers. And they call them living in the stacks because they were trailers stacked on each other. And so as you're going down the stairs, you're looking into other people's lives because he was, just a glimpse through the camera of, this person playing this video game or this other person playing this other 3D thing. And they're all immersed in this three-dimensional reality. And the real reality doesn't matter anymore. They're barely even there. So much so that they don't even notice that they're in the stacks unless they have to leave to actually eat and do other things. Otherwise, they're in the virtual reality world. Do we want to reach that point?
I feel like that's something we deal with in society now is people trying to escape reality. And if people are still having this dream to escape reality until you can produce the perfect fake reality around them that they can control, I don't see that need ever being satisfied. I think they're always going to chase that perfect dream.
Well, hold on. Then we get into the entire soliloquy at the end of the very first Matrix movie, when Agent Smith was trying to break the mind of Morpheus, and so he was telling them. Yeah, well, everybody needs to escape, actually, and that's, but yeah. Anyway, you had Agent Smith talking to Morpheus, and he was telling him how the first experiments they had actually done everything perfectly, and so it was this no violence, no problems. You could do anything you wanted, and people thought it was too perfect, and nobody accepted the programming. They kept being rejected, and they lost crops and crops of humans because of that they had to reinstate. And they kept refining the matrix, and they figured out that humans needed that adversity, that difficulty to make them thrive, to make them feel like life was there. They couldn't have the perfect life. They weren't happy with that. They knew that wasn't real somehow. Maybe, I don't know. That's a hypothesis put forward in a movie. I mean, but there are things to be thought about. Do we look for the difficulties? We can't see the good things. We can't enjoy the good things. I mean, one of the things that I talk about, those vices take us into these circular little motions to where we're stuck in that moment, and it takes us away from what would otherwise be our destiny tree, the way I've kind of explained it to Junior. The multidimensional multiverse destiny tree, a road that you're going down. And so the fact that I would be like the doctor who never went to his house, he worked all day and he just went home to sleep. And so he's got this huge mansion and all these things and the furniture and TVs and all the accoutrements that money can bring with you, but he didn't use any of it because he was at the hospital the whole day. So whenever I built this place, I said, well, at least I'm going to enjoy it a little while before I go on. I've been enjoying it for 20 years now. It's time to go on. Because many people build and buy things and don't actually enjoy them. They just have fun when they buy them because it's like, yes, I could. And that was the thing. I used to pick myself up by going to the mall and buying something. Make you feel better. Whatever. Just put more junk in your closet. It makes you feel better. Do you use it? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes you use it for a while, and if you choose well. But it took me, like I keep saying, 10 years to actually break that habit down here. Because I came here and I went to the mall and I tried to do the same thing, and I didn't have the same choices, and they didn't really have what I was looking for, and the price was double what I was used to paying and everything else. So I ended up not buying something. And little by little, over a decade, I finally got out of making myself feel better by going and buying something because I was frustrated more often than anything else. You get into the deeper essence of what it is, where happiness actually comes from. And I'm still looking for that. I'm still not sure where it comes from. Some say it comes from within. Well, I'm screwed. But
to a certain level, I feel like it can be manifested from within, but I feel like there's a balance to it. I mean, with everything, there's only so much personal happiness you can find in yourself, and there's only so much happiness you can find in others. I feel like you got to find a good balance where you're working with your community, you're working with your family, you're making it through the best you can. I mean, we're in this life. We might as well make the best of it and do the best we can with the opportunities we got, but rather than overlook them and try to run away from them, because I feel like that's the one thing that I do see people trying to do is get away from these situations and not want to be in the now. Like we were talking about with wanting to do virtual reality or wanting an alternative reality or being
because the now sucks. Usually they don't like their now,
but they think
that's why they're trying to run away to something else.
They can't see the positives through everything else that's overshadowing it. I mean, that's one of the things that I do like to point out when some of the times when I have what I call my religious experiences, I wake up the next day appreciating the sunlight. I appreciating that I'm there the next day. I appreciate that there's just these regular things that I feel like I overlook a lot. And sometimes I need a better perspective to stop, take a deep breath, take in what you have, and just, enjoy what you have. Because most of the time you overlook it and you don't think it's you don't think it's something significant. You just think it's something that everybody has, or
it's always been that way, and it's always going to be that way, and it usually isn't. It's usually something that I don't know. Nothing ever stays the same. That's the only thing I could say. Nothing ever stays the same.
But I gotta actually wrap it up here pretty soon.
I got you. You had mentioned that you were going. I was trying to find it so I could say hello to Mud Rabbit in the chat. There we go. Found it. So,
but yeah, getting ready to boogie. So I just wanted you to know if you ever want to jump on again and just want to start one up, just let me know. I'm always happy to.
That's what you had mentioned that. So I thank you very much. That's why I actually took you up on. I know it's a Friday and a Saturday. I guess other people have lives, right? I don't leave this place ever. So a Saturday is like a Monday, is like a Wednesday, is like, there were sometimes the only time I left the house was to play soccer on Monday and Thursday. So yeah, I'm always around. And thank you very much for picking this one up. It was a pick me up. So I appreciate it. Enjoy pool, enjoy darts, enjoy some beer. Have a good Friday night.
Yep. Thanks for stopping in, Mud Rabbit. And it was nice talking to you. And I know we'll talk again soon. We'll reach out and do something soon. If I come home at a crazy hour, maybe we'll do another one tonight and take some calls online or something.
No worries. I got stuff I gotta do and be around, but always. Thank you, Mud Rabbit. Thank you, Jacob. Have some fun. Have a nice Friday night, everybody.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.